the Sun Tribe group and you on this podcast, this is the only time I really talk about this stuff. But also in my journey, because I woke up like 4 years ago, kind of thing. I don't feel the need to like reach out and like look for people because I feel like I I think it's partially because of the channeling. Because when I'm channeling, the amount of information that I get is like, if I were channeling, like we've done this for about an hour, 20 minutes, the amount of information we've shared would have taken me 5 minutes with channeling because you're getting like chunks, entire whole chunks of information. So like it's like you're eating it, digesting it, and also getting rid of it at the exact same time. And then as it passes through you, the proper adjustments are made in terms of like, oh, this is new information that's really different. This is, I know exactly what to do with this and where to put it. Instead of like in the 3D world, you get something happens, it confuses you. Then you got to reflect on like, did you do anything wrong? Or was it something else? All these considerations. And then it makes a big tangled web. And then you have emotions in that and stuff. But with this, it's just the pure concepts and information. There's none of the consequential context, that being like, oh, you believe something that most people don't, you're weird. Like, there's none of that. It's just like, it's just pure information. So I don't really have the need to like reach out and form a community anymore because that internal dialogue is so much more efficient. But then I realized that like you can move in a way and then other people might be moving at a certain pace and then soon the the like mesh becomes less and less because you're channeling and maybe you're like I'll channel sometime before bed just to like have a like I'll do like like I do life reviews a lot of like, okay, if I were to die tomorrow, like what should I change tonight kind of thing. But like yeah, but like
It's a lot of
um
self-reflection.
yeah, because I've had many near death experiences in my life, like six. So
Yep, you've told me a few of those
yeah,
before.
so it's just like it's put the question in a more like practical method for me of like, oh yeah, fuck right, I am gonna die. A lot of people know that, but I'm like, oh yeah, remember that time when that semi truck hit me? Like, oh yeah, like somebody was looking out for me then, but like uh, it's just like in one timeline, I'm pretty sure I did die. So,
Man, I can't laugh with you on that. I'm sorry. I
oh
can't laugh at
no,
you.
it
I'm
was literally
sorry.
happening.
I'm like trying to be like, I can't.
It's just
How do I
wild.
respond to that?
Every night for a
Sorry.
week straight, I had a nightmare where a semi truck hit me coming around this corner and my airbag failed. So my skull hit the steering wheel and then just like whew, everything that was in here went out, everything that was here went out. And then the car, like all the force tramp, so it crumpled and then bounced and then kind of like rolled in like this crumpled ball into the forest. Anyways, that dream, and then I died every night. And then I was moving my stuff from Kamloops back to my hometown in Dawson. And this feeling washes over me. I'm going through this very snowy Pine Pass and like Prince George to Dawson area. And I'm like, oh, shit. This is a lot like my dream. I think I might be dying soon. I don't really feel ready. I don't know if there's angels or like this is what I said out loud. Literally, I was like, I don't know if the angels exist, but like, I feel like I still have more stuff to learn and do. Kind of feels like a waste of a lot of energy and resources to get to this point and then just dip out. And then I got hit by a semi truck, and it instead of the force transferring, it just ripped the entire left side of my car off, and then all that was left was the plastic part of the door. So like from the inside, it was like, oh, I'm still in a car, but then you look on the outside, it's like the little rebar and then the plastic, and I'm like, oh, so it was like 3 inches. If I was 3 inches to the left, it would have been enough force so that the engine block would have hit the corner of the cab, and then all the kinetic energy would have transferred. But instead, it refracted. And that was actually probably I just started laughing because I was physically uninjured. Like I had a little blood coming down, but that was just from broken glass. It was nothing like it was just aesthetic injuries. And yeah, it was just wild. I just started laughing because all the shit in my car was pretty much destroyed as well. But like I was supposed to move to Australia like 2 days later, and then the next day I'm buying weed from somebody, and he's like, "Hey, I have DMT. Do you want to buy some?" And I'm like, "I've always wanted to try that before I die. Yes, I would." And so I did, and then I interacted with something. It called itself Intelligent Infinity or like Infinity, but it was like wild. Gave me a lot of super useful information that really I would like to think that started like my intellectual awakening, but then the spiritual aspect, like this is when I started learning about Buddhism, Eastern philosophies, just the very like dipping your toes in the water of new ideas, learning about duality. What is duality? Like the very basics of esoteric knowledge and wisdom. And then over the course of I think a couple of years and COVID hit, that's when I really started making a practical meditation, things to strengthen the resolve of your mind during lockdowns. And then Kundalini awakening partway through the lockdowns. And then full blown, like 3 months later, I met the love, like found channeling the love beings. And then 2 years later, I started channeling. Now here we are. So yeah. Anyways, sorry. Yeah, it was a tangled mess, but
No, no, don't be sorry. It's yeah, it's I mean honestly, I never really had a desire to ever like do it like before until like recently, you know. Uh it is something that like I said, you know, I want to learn how to do it without, and I know that's going to take some practice. So, you know, and but you know, like you said when you intellectually woke up because of that experience, you know, really for me, I will say like I've been like, I mean, actually, I've been super awake as far as what's going on in my reality for a while. I just haven't fully dived in at a deeper level um, on some of this stuff. And honestly, it's because it can be a lot, you know.
mhm.
And so, but I will say, like, I've made a conscious effort. Like, I pick up books about this stuff, and I force myself to read them, so I at least have some understanding. You know, so like I said, even channeling. So before I knew you, I guess 2 years ago is probably about the time I read that book. You know what I mean? So like, my interest has always been there. So I just, you know, if you if you'd have any advice for somebody like me trying
In like what regards? Like, what are you looking for?
to try to have a better a more efficient connection in channeling and like uh
Like with channeling specifically?
yeah, without the use of like plant medicine, you know, like what's, you know, like, I mean, I just kind of look at it like, you know, I know you're still learning. The only way I know how to do it is through plant medicine. But is there any other tips or advice you give somebody like me, like trying to do it a different way?
Yeah, so I mean, think of it like a phone call. When you call somebody on their phone, they have to pick up, right? So, start off first off, like what I recommend is set the intention, like just kind of put out vibrationally, like I would like to interact with non-physical entities more when you could put conditions on it, or you could just leave it like that. You know what I mean? You could say when I'm channeling or not, and then give it some time because we're in the third density. So like just kind of like carry that vibe in your heart and your mind a little bit. Don't fixate on it, but just kind of like stay open to it. Kind of like if you're working out, you just feel a little bit more like energetic. You feel different. Have that kind of like that's the law of attraction at work. And what that'll do is that'll just kind of be like it's like making a Tinder profile and being like, oh, now you're in the market. You can be swiped left or right on. That's the way I see it. And then when you go to actually channel, say in like 3 days or a week, um, be honest with yourself. So when you go channeling, don't try and make something happen. Literally, what I do is I imagine myself in like either like a white room. It's not a room, it's like the void, but it's white. So you're just kind of like you're not floating, but you're standing, but there's no floor. And there's nothing. And then I'll just wait. and I'll just literally put out in that, like visually in that, I'll just literally wait, and I'll be like, if anybody feels like showing up, I'll like, and then I set the conditions of how I'm going to interact with them, and then kind of put that as like an ad of like, if somebody decides they want to interact with me, these are the conditions of like how I'll interact with them. I won't ever ask you of this of you. I won't ask you to compromise this of you. Don't ask this of me. And then once that agreement's made, then you can actually start the like relationship. But what that does is it just says like you're not gonna expect getting your nails done in a bar, right? Like you create a space, you create the intention of what it is so that they can, on an energetic level, identify it. Think of it like a video game. You're going into a lobby, right? And then if something shows up, great. If not, don't despair. Just chill there, exist there. You can build that space to be whatever you want. But now that it exists as like a thought form, you have like a mental construct to start building off of. And over time, build it and they will come. That's the way I see it. And for me, it was I didn't do it exactly that way, but like looking back, that's what I would do differently if I was going to try and accelerating it, knowing what works now. So yeah. Anyways,
Okay. No, like, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know, like, that's some of the stuff I have kind of been that I knew at least a little bit about was like set the intention, stuff like that. So, um, but
also another important thing with non-physical entities is trying to attach the symbolism of their visuals and what they look like to their actual form, because oftentimes my understanding of it is the way that they appear in your mind's eye is actually more like a mishmash of like pop culture and your conception of what they look like. But because they're non-physical, it's just like they're like, I don't know, like it's like somebody asking you, you know, what your Warcraft character would look like, and you're like, I've never played Warcraft. Like, what is that? And that might be how the physical experience is to them, right? Like they don't know the rules of our game. So, um, what I do is I literally imagine I'm talking to just pure consciousness, and I'll be like, oh, how do you want to appear to me? And then you both agree how, like, because if they're respectful, they'll be like, well, what's comfortable for you? And then it's a back and forth, and that's the beginning of the actual like channeling, is like an internal dialogue between them, and then eventually you can start to kind of like let go, and then be like, well, like, because for me it starts as a conversation between two like mental characters, me being one in my head, and then the other one being this thing that I have to determine whether it's a projection of my mind or if it's channelable. If it's channelable, then it's not a projection of my mind. If it's a projection of my mind, it's ego based, and then I have to think to make it exist. And sometimes you don't catch it, but it happens. Anyways, yeah. So there's a distinct feeling between making a projection, like creating an ego entity is what I call them, like an imagined character, which is still channeling to some extent, but might not be higher. And then an entity that's coming from somewhere else and kind of like giving you, like, you can feel it. There's an energetic feeling difference. One feels kind of like it's straining, like you're pulling on something. And then the other one feels like you just kind of like open the door and then something approaches you. So that's the best way I can, yeah. Anyways,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just trying to go back into some of my experiences, you know, in detail a little bit more because because there was a couple times too now, and it's funny, like, because I will say, like, right after those experiences for me, like, it's so like even like these things that can be complex in nature, like it's like I can regurgitate or understand it deeper, but the further I get away from that moment in time, like it gets harder for me to still understand it the same way. Does that make sense
yeah,
at
I
all?
do.
Yeah. So, um, but yeah, I mean, there's been times where, and again, I don't know if that's the channeling aspect, but like where I felt like I was opening a door and almost like something was like kind of like using me to speak a little bit. Does that make sense? But
Totally,
like
yeah.
like I was asking the questions consciously, but something else was verbalizing it. at the answer. Does that make sense?
No, that's exact like the channelings that I've sent you that I've done.
Uh-huh.
It just sounds like there's no voice asking questions, but there's just answers coming out. That's because in my mind I'm asking the questions, but you can't hear that because I only have one mouth to work, right? So it's like there's actually like two. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
And I've been trying to, on a little bit side note too, I've been trying to, like, when I read, I try to sometimes write down new words because then it helps me with my vocabulary a little bit. So hopefully I
Hmm.
can articulate because, like, that's one thing I've always noticed with you. Like, you're very good at articulating and just dialogue in general.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
like,
Yeah,
that sometimes that comes into channeling though, doesn't it? Like, um, they can only the channeled message can only go to the channeler's capacity and understanding. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's like it's okay. So you have a program, right? The program can do infinite amount of crazy stuff, but the computer only has hardware that can go to a certain limit. So if you have an old computer, the program's going to run on low graphics. If you have a really good computer, yeah, maybe high graphics, but it can still go higher. You know, that's the way I think of it. It's like the interpretations are relative to your ability to conceive of what they're trying to give you. It's about compressibility. So they give you an idea and say the idea is like this really fucking complicated thing. But then think of what Einstein said, if you don't know it that well, then if you know it well, you can compress it down to a very simple version and then fill in the more complex minutia later, but you don't need all this other stuff to just understand the cause and effect, you know? Like I don't need to know how to run the slit experiment to know that when I observe matter, it's going to change the way that the matter behaves. So that kind of thing. So yeah, and sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. Like completely. Started thinking about the observer effect.
No, no, no. You're fine, man. We were just it's yeah, it's channeling has been I just like so yeah, so that's how it felt like. It felt like basically that somebody else, like, I was consciously, like, asking questions, but, like, something else for a few things was answering it. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But, like, it never felt like it felt good. Like, it felt like a very pleasurable experience. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain that. Like, it felt very, natural too, actually. But
Yeah, you don't really like it's not a it doesn't I don't know how to explain it. It just feels kind of like nothing almost, but not. It's very subtle. Like
yeah, I was
uh
very well. That's a good. Yeah, I was very at peace. I guess I didn't like. It was almost like I was just completely the observer. I was just watching a play, kind
yeah.
of thing. That's what it is. Is that maybe a way to describe it as well too? Like, from that.
Yeah, like you just kind of take a step back and then things go and you're like nice. And you're just making sure that it's like you're kind of the director now, not the actor anymore. You're like watching it and then you just tell them when the scene ends or you tell them to run a certain scene. Yeah,
So in your I guess in your understanding of what I'm telling you, is that kind of more like you'd say a channeled message for sure, like a channeled experience.
what specific experience? The like experience of like kind of taking a step back and observing.
Like I was telling you, yeah, like that like it felt like basically I was consciously asking this. I don't know how to explain it, but, like, it was more of a feeling. I just had this feeling of this entity that it was, and it was verbalizing the questions I was consciously asking it.
Yeah, I would say like if that happened to me the way you describe it, sounds pretty in line with the experience I have when I actually do channeling. Um, and for me, even when I channel, I'm like I never know if it's just like me making it up. But some of the stuff that I listen to, I'm like, there's no way I could have made any of this up. Like I don't know, just the way that the messages that they come through and the way that it's speaking and like the frame of reference, I don't know, but I know what you mean in terms of that like you don't know and you want you want to know for sure, like what, because what it is.
And you kind of want to understand it. Like, I'm not necessarily searching for validation, right? Like, but like,
No, no,
no,
but
no. And I'm just saying that, like, but at the same time, like, I respect your opinion because, like, I feel the genuineness of the stuff that I've, that you've had, then it resonates with me. So I know it's genuine, you know what I mean? And I know the validity, and then I just kind of my basing now my own experiences, especially like through this podcast. So, which has been awesome, too. But to get a little more depth into my own understanding about channeling. So thanks. But it is
no
like,
problem.
yeah, it is like kind of like that though. Is like, I guess I am asking, like, that feels like that's a channeled message, but you know, again, there's a lot of people like, and I hate to kind of reference that, but like, uh, in my environment, my culture, like to even talk about channeling, like just around, like most people don't like, I don't really care. You know what I mean? I don't really want to listen to it. And the
Hmm.
people that do, like, they might kind of just understand the concept, like, because I kind of even knew what it was, but to like fully feel like you're experiencing it and then kind of have people tell you, like, you know familiarity stories or things that you're experiencing, kind of really does, at least I guess if you were to label it, validate, but like kind of it does put your consciousness at ease a little bit and a little bit more at peace, because you're not like, I don't know, because to me, during an ascension process for everybody, like, you're just constantly having these like different little layers of detachment. You know what I mean? Like, whatever that is in any form. And like, so that to me is another understanding of that, I'm still doing that, but there's a lot of people around me that they're not, like, I don't know. I mean, most of the people at my fire station, I'm not, as a measure, they are still just, how do I say it? They're just very plugged in people.
Okay.
So it's hard to like kind of like, talk about this stuff. So like the channeling outlet has been nice. So I guess, quote unquote, to validate my experience a little bit, but to hear that you have some similar stories, it's nice to hear that, man. So thanks.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear, like, it feels like there's kind of solidarity in that because I know quite it feels like I understand quite well what you're talking about because I was going through that in my hometown and um I don't really like I don't have that anymore because I don't even feel the need, like I gave up. I honestly gave up trying to I don't think I'll ever run into anyone in real life that actually I've maybe met six people in my entire life since I started on this journey 4 years ago that, and they're mostly people in the Sun tribe that kind of understand the frame of reference that I've come to understand about all this stuff. And um, I used to crave like having that, but then I realized that I think that's impossible because what I really crave is like somebody to see things the exact same way that I do, but I realized quite literally that's impossible due to the observer effect. And that the ascension process or the spiritual journey or whatever you call it is a solo climb no matter what. Doesn't mean you have to be a hermit, but the truth is you have to honestly kind of, I like to think of it kind of like, I don't know, like, like we're born solo. We're the only ones inside of our consciousness, and we're the only ones that see through our eyes. And when we pass away, we'll be the only ones who experience that. That to some of us might sound kind of sad or like, oh, but if that's the default reality, why would that be sad? And yeah, we yearn for people like similarity and like to people to see things the same way we do because the things that could come from that in terms of like what you could build could be phenomenal. But I think that will genuinely come, but it won't be in the way that like we even crave. Like it, even if it does come, it might not ever scratch that itch, you know? Because I know the feeling. It's like I don't know. I can't explain it. Like mm, we're all trying to make sense of it, you know? We're all trying to figure out the best way to do with, like there's so many changes happening that we can't even observe in our day-to-day life in terms of like, the governments, technology, all these different things. It's like, man, at the end of the day, for me, it's like, I just, how do I live a good life in spite of all these changes? Not in spite, but it's like, how do I explore the multi-dimensional factor while also just appearing like a regular person? I want to be somebody that like somebody could know me for 10 years as like a normal person. And then if they bring up quantum mechanics one day, my comprehension of it is to the extent of they're like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, like it's just not worth it. Like it's not worth it to like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not cynicism either. It's just more of like a hermit attitude, I guess. Like I got channeling. I can talk to interdimensional, even if they're just fabrications of my imagination. I can still conceivably exchange information with them. So I don't really need to. I don't need it. I don't need to like talk to people who might just because they disagree with my perspective on things, decide to cut ties with me or something like that. Some sort of consequence that isn't worth it, you know? Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we're all bound by this physical life and what we
Oh
do with
yeah.
it. But I think for me, like, so this new Netflix series, Three Body Problem, I just started watching it a
Great
little bit.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. So like there's this part where like the adults are all like saving themselves and like this child's just over there and like to me I think that's a lot of it is like and even my even like my partner the other day she was like you really do care about my kids, you want the best for them. And it was like
Hmm.
absolutely. She's like and she said for all kids I've just noticed that about you. I think that's a big part of like you know the thing is like I just don't really want to spend too much time like explaining to people who are I don't want to I it's like energy and magnetism and like it's we're creating the bandwidth, I guess you would say, and like that's going to be the attraction. You know what I'm saying? That's the honey to the honeybee, kind of, I guess you would say. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
so like and that's what it keeps so like I love diving into these topics, especially from my perspective, who's not as well versed in some of it, and even the quantum mechanics and understanding. So I appreciate your patience. I will say,
No
like
problem. Yeah.
my background about it really just is I just do a lot of spiritual stuff, man, and honestly, like I try not to get too heavy into stuff like with the cargo ship, like that. Like I understood it because it's obviously relative because the second you open your phone on any social media platform, it's just there because it's my understanding is designed like that's part of it. But like, so I don't really pay much attention. I just use that as a reference because I knew we would, but like what I'm saying is like, I actually just do a lot of stuff for myself and channeling is one of those things like, I could see where it gives you, like you said, that hermit you just mentioned a little bit. Like, you know, uh, it's hard for me sometimes to go out and like in this environment energetically
Mm.
and diving into some more of these topics is like that's where I like the energy gives back, right? You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know, it feels good. So I will say I had a little bit of apprehension just with because uh, I hadn't been personally feeling the greatest about my ability to do things on this podcast. So but today was like uplifting and
That's awesome.
diving in deep to the channeling and you helping me understand it at a just a different level was awesome. So I hope somebody out there got something out of it too by my experience and the way I've came and then yours and then whatever, at least now there's a shared story. So thanks.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on. I'm glad we got to redo this one because I wasn't really happy with the way that I like let my phone overheat partway through the other one. So, um, but yeah, um, it just occurred to me as well, like if you're interested in, for me, I just realized like I might have kind of a unique perspective on some of this stuff because I like to think of these things in terms of the physics of energy. Come from an auto engineer background. I kind of do, I genuinely do believe everything is energy, but deeper than that, there's a guy that I follow on YouTube called Dan Winters. He's a electrical engineer who helped design the IBM computer or something back in the 60s or 70s. Anyways, now he deals with the theoretical physics of consciousness and how it could possibly um, he basically formulated that there's a universal tick rate of time, and it's quantum, and it's based off of the Planck length, and basically like there's a universal constant of time, but gravity can distort it and affect it. So like he's trying to basically merge quantum mechanics and physics together and explain like he also merges esotericism, and he also founded Gaia also. So
Really, the Gaia network?
yeah, he co-founded it. Yeah.
Okay.
He knows his stuff. Like he knows the entire history of the Draco-Reptilian Empire, should they exist. And the thing that I find most fascinating about him though is he actually understands like down to mathematics and physics how consciousness is integrated into the human body, how meditation causes consciousness to expand in its scope, or how entering a bliss state energetically can expand the consciousness to make information compressible. It's like when you go into a channeling state, it's like you're being supplied with higher frequency energy, and so the data is like crystal clear, right? But there's more of it, and so he kind of breaks that down, and you start to understand the physics or the theoretical physics behind like
Can somebody be a better conduit if because they like live a cleaner life or they have less interference through like, from my understanding, like a crystallized pineal gland? Is there any like relevancy behind that, and like how good you can be a conduit, or for that?
yeah, there are like things energetically, but then the things that he spoke about relative to that, if I remember correctly, there are certain things. There's like, I think fluoride was one of them that he said is like an impact. There's also um, some cooking oils he said that should be avoided, like canola oil, I think. Cheap shit that nobody really eats anyways. But um, yes, in short, yes, but like he goes into it in more detail, but it's like there's certain things you can do as well, like internally energetically, of like it's called hemisync. Your two hemispheres they synchronize, and the wavelengths that they both generate coincide. And so instead of one like they instead of them colliding or canceling each other out or creating anxiety, they hit each other and then amplify. It's called implosion, I think, or implosive something. It creates a energy spike, and then it propels the brain into like gamma state, which is like the genius level intellect apparently. I have the app, and I used to have the EEG device, and I used to measure my brain waves actually because I was getting very scientific about this stuff. I'm very curious about it, but
To collect like a bunch of data, basically, a little bit.
yeah, like specifically relative to other people that I've used, like from my own data sampling, for some reason my delta waves are like off the charts. Like the ultra low frequency, the brain waves that should be active when you're in a deep dreamless sleep are like higher than anyone's I've ever seen on this.
So let me ask you, and actually, I maybe you'd be a good person to ask. I don't know. So I haven't had a dream. Well, I should say this in about like the last, I don't know, 4 years or so, since I can remember, for a while. Like I don't really dream. Like
Oh.
I've only had a couple snapshots of things, and like I've had a couple like a couple times. So this is I'm talking less than one hand, of
Mhm.
moments overall. And like so I just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty at peace though. Does that make sense? Like I don't have a problem sleeping. Like I sleep actually pretty well. and like
Yeah.
I feel like I sleep hard. But like I'd be curious to like hook me up or whatever, but I don't in my mind like I just black out and I just next thing I know I'm just waking up, I guess.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
weird.
Yeah. I sometimes I dream, sometimes I don't, but one thing with me is I've had like really, really, really weird dreams. Like um I'm getting tortured to death and then I actually die.
Oh damn.
And then they like really disrespect my corpse. And then for some reason I just watched them disrespect my corpse. And stuff
From
like
like a
that.
bird's eye view, like the
Yeah,
observer effect, like
about
up there or
about
something.
8 feet above the ground, bird's eye view, like right kind of like 2 feet above their head type thing. Watching them work, really gross stuff. And then other things of like, I had this one dream where um, I was part of a team that went to extract the souls who got caught in the blast of Hiroshima because it fragmented their consciousness and like it contorted their consciousness and made it incompatible with like the base reality. So they had to create like a sub-dimensional pocket for these to rehabilitate the consciousness so that it could come back into this like reality.
Like a buffer zone, like a warm zone.
Yes, like a healing, like a big healing, like hospital kind of thing for consciousness. And because in the dream, the nuclear bomb really, 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 really fucked up their souls. Like nuclear warfare would be the worst way to die from a consciousness perspective from that, if that dream is true. But I went and I'm in and I'm like, they're living like it's World War II is still happening, but they're all in a concentration camp for some reason. But they're all willingly there because they think that the nuclear bomb, they know that the nuclear bomb dropped, but they think that the nuclear bomb saved them and destroyed everything else. So they're like in this like sandbox reality, like Plato's cave. Like literally, it's down underground, like a bunker. And they don't leave outside, but there's like false light, so it looks like they're just in a wooden concentration camp. Like there's like fake lights behind the windows that are like you can't see through the windows, but it looks like daylight. But they're not outside. Anyways, I went down and I'm like, guys, it's like it's time to go. You can leave, right? Like this isn't real. Like, and they shot me in the heart. They got really pissed off. Really pissed
So
off.
like you actually remember getting shot, like looking down or like
Yeah, you get shot. It feels like you kind of like I don't know how to explain it. You just like go like this, and then all of a sudden, first you feel warmth, then a burning sensation, and then you start to feel really like sick to your stomach, and then weak in your legs, and then you collapse. And then yeah.
dang, so you like took on the energy of being shot kinda per se?
Oh, like when I die in my dreams, I actually feel it like in my body. Like I've been killed by wolves where they like the canines go into your throat and you can feel the blood going into your lungs. And anyways, just stuff like things that like I don't know. It's just I'm not very scared to die, but like I think it's gonna be weird. But like if it's like dreams, it's gonna feel weird, but you de-real like you the pain is there, but it's not like once you know you're dying, you fully commit to the role. So the pain doesn't matter.
You're just
I'm
like,
not
"All right,
joking.
I'm
Yeah.
going with it." You just let it go, huh? You just
Yeah,
ride the
literally. You're like,
wave.
oh, and then you realize, oh, pain isn't actually, it's just stimulus. It's just stimulus tied to fear. But then when you know that you're dying in a dream, the fear goes away. So you're like, oh,
Bro, my partner, like, she, like, sleeps like that. Like, she is very intent. Like, so her whatever she's experiencing, like, in her dream, like, she says she feels it. You know
yes.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so she's very sensitive in that manner. So, but for me, like I'm telling you, man, I don't know what it is. Like, I just drift and like it's like a light switch, bro. It's like
Whoa.
a on
That's
and then
cool.
off. That's it.
That's so you're locked in then. Like from your perspective, when you're like, oh, I got something to do tomorrow, it's like tomorrow is like now. Like
Yes, that
that's
is
crazy to
the
me.
second
Like,
I want to fall asleep. Yes. Now sometimes I may work up and like have to use the restroom at like 3:45, but like it'll be super early and then I can fall back asleep and it's still like another light switch.
wow. Dude, there's some nights where I have like three different dreams and they feel like they're like an hour long each. So like some nights I have that light switch thing, but then some nights the night feels like I wake up and I'm like, what day is it again? Because if it just like distorts like time for you, it made the night felt like 2 days kind of thing. It's weird. But then you forget the dream really quick and then that feeling goes away. But yeah,
Yeah, so like I said, I just yeah, man, it's been that, and that's why I don't understand too because I mean the only thing I can think of is like, I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I would drink like, I don't know, like honestly, I'd probably drink a couple times, a few times, whatever, a handful of times a month, I guess I'd say. But I would drink a
okay,
little bit more when I would drink, like than I do now. Like now, I just like if I have a couple glasses of wine, like that's it. Like I'm done. Like
yeah,
so. But anyways, I'm a lightweight, but and I don't drink that much. But like that's the only thing I could think of like around that time. But like it's been that way for maybe even a little bit longer now that I think about it. Like it's been a while. Like I'm starting to get to that where blurriness of like I can't even remember where it started. You know what I mean? But like it
yeah,
wasn't always that way. It just kind of happened. And then like now, yeah, for a while it's like I said, it is that if I just lay there and I know I'm tired and I'm about to go to bed, like you said, it's kind of crazy. I know I'm like, oh, I can fall asleep and it'll fast forward 6 hours instantly. And that's how it feels. I don't remember
uh,
I feel no representation of time between at all.
that's crazy.
So that
Do you
is,
snore?
I don't usually, but I can. I
Okay.
mean, so I don't, I can, but it doesn't happen that often.
Because apparently when people snore, they don't dream. Like you can't go to REM or whatever. But I mean, never dreaming, that's really specific. You know what I mean? Like never dreaming. And then like teleporting through time kind of. Because I feel like in our at night, like, you still exist, right? So like you go somewhere. Your consciousness keeps doing stuff.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah. Your body's just at rest.
And your brain, I don't think your brain can actually shut down. Like there's always neurons firing. Like there's no way it'll it it can't. It's the computer's always running, even if
Well,
it's the
then
screen's
for
off.
me, like I will say, like if I don't get into REM, like I will say this, like I feel really well rested. Like, and like to give you an example, like last night, like shoot, I was in bed at like 9:30, 9:45, but really falling asleep by like 10, 15,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but I'll wake up at 4 to like use the restroom, and then I might lay back down and lay down, sleep for another, whatever, half hour kind of thing. And then I'll get up and then I'm up, but it's like still like 5:30 in the morning, kind of thing. So I'm still an early riser, but it is like that. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's some shit I should look into. Maybe I don't even get into RIM, but I'm telling you, man, like I feel well rested. Like I
Yeah,
feel like I'm energized and I could do a lot the next day. And anyways, yeah.
I find it really interesting, like just yeah, like what the brain it might be doing, like to not ever store anything in the actual memory and kind of make it feel like you blacked out or something, maybe. And that's really interesting to me because my dad's like that. He doesn't dream. It's just like, and I don't know, it's so different from because whenever I go to sleep, I never know what I'm gonna get. If it's gonna be like a restful sleep, sometimes if I have a bad dream, I might wake up and notice my neck's tense or something. Like my body
Uh,
really responds to the dreams I have.
uh,
So if it's a stressful dream, I'll wake up and I'll sometimes I'll literally have like claw marks and like I can only assume that if I'm having a stressful dream, I'll like I don't know what I do or something. It's weird, but um, so it's like a button you push and then you don't know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it's a
man,
quick sleep, easy sleep. Sometimes it feels like a whole adventure. And yeah, anyways.
I'm missing out. I guess, right? That's one perspective. I guess another perspective is I just get to hit a switch and there's nothing, and I'm really well rested. It's like I do get a reset, like a battery reset, like a switch. Like, okay, the juice. Like you know what I mean. So because when I wake up, I'm like, I'm pretty rested.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you're more like for me, I get distracted by my dreams sometimes, right? Like if I didn't have dreams, I'd be more like locked into my life of like the same thought I had before I went to sleep would probably be close to a similar thought I have when I wake up. Sometimes when I wake up, I have no idea what I was doing the last like hour before bed, like thought wise, because my dream just took me to such a fucking crazy universe that like anything that I did even the day before, I'm like,
There's so much information between
yeah,
that point and that
legit.
other
It's just
point.
like it's like sure it's fun, but it's like and then you go to work and you're like, oh, now I need to switch to like this mode and focus on this. And anyways, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
Well, hey man, thanks for coming today. And like I just want to say too, like, this is more like a co-created spot
yeah,
podcast, so people understand that. So Andrew's more like a co-contributor, right? Yeah, that's the
yeah.
what I'm trying to say. So anyways, so yeah, so there'll be a lot more from you in the future too, right?
Absolutely. Also, before I go, I actually might do a channeling today. Is there anything I should ask? Like, I haven't been channeling lately because there's nothing I need to know. Like, I have no reason to. So,